What's going on, guys? In this video we're going to take a look at how to turn one of your Python scripts into a graphical interface. So project we're going to make today is a port scanner. I just thought that would be a neat little app to have that you can run from your phone and run some scans. So here you can see it on screen. That's what it's going to look like. Of course you're going to be able to change all the colors and all of that, and it's going to teach you a bunch of stuff and give you a good baseline on how to turn a script into a program with a graphical user interface. So let's run this program. I'm gonna go ahead and scan my router here so you can see basically what this is gonna do. So let me put my router's address here. And let's go ahead and scan like 10,000 ports, because why not? Alright, the scan's finished. You can see it replies back with all the open ports, so we can go ahead and access that. We can scroll down and see all the available ports, and if we want we can save that result. So I'm gonna go ahead and save it, and just to show you guys how that would look like, let me open here on my files, and yep, should be this file over here, and let's open it like that. So there you go, it gives you a nice little list with the target, with how many ports were scanned, the results, and which ports are open. So that's going to be our little project. Let's jump into it. We're going to be doing this on PyDroid. I have another video that I will be linking up above here, so if you don't have PyDroid you can install it. Let's begin. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and do a new project. And to start off, we're gonna be using basic Python libraries. So let's import socket, system, threading, and time. And the library responsible for the graphical interface will be Tkinter. And we're gonna import all of it. So that's everything we're gonna need, and let's jump ahead and start doing the graphical interface. Actually, that's pretty much all we're gonna be doing. If you don't know, I've made a video a while back with how to make a port scanner in Python 3 using threading, and this is the code for it. So I'll be using this exact code for the functionality of the script, and basically we'll just be focusing on the interface. Of course we're going to change the scanning functions a little bit, but yeah, I thought this would be a nice little project since it deals with sockets, it deals with a variety of interesting libraries, so a lot to learn. But let's jump into the graphical interface. So you could put a little comment there, graphical interface. And let's begin. So we're gonna start a variable called GUI, and that's the main interface. And then let's go ahead and add a title to it. We can call it port scanner. And now we're gonna set the geometry of it, which is basically the height and all that stuff. So we'll do 400 pixels by 600, so it's gonna be a little bigger vertically. And we'll do the 20 on each side. That's pretty cool. Now let's do the colors. So this is gonna control the coloring scheme for the graphical interface. I'll just use some random variable names here. Feel free to use something more meaningful. So it's like a black grayish color. And now the background color, we'll do like a gray. That should be good. And this we could do just regular black, the dark background. So when you click the button, that's gonna come up. Now the foreground color, we could do a little bit of a darker grayish color as well. Alright, so this is gonna be our main colors. And to set the GUI with those colors, we do tk set palette and then we can just do background equals the background color, foreground equals the foreground color. Actually, let's do the first one, the green color, and then we could do the active background. We'll do that the foreground color, and then the active foreground. We'll set that to the background color as well. Now we'll do the highlight color. We'll make that the green. And the highlight background will be the green as well. Alright, so we got the different colors here. You can just change the variables and that's gonna give you all different colors. So yeah, that should already give us the right colors we want. If we want to go ahead and test it out, all we have to do is GUI dot main loop, and that should start the graphical interface. Start GUI. So we can go ahead and save that, and let me save it on my Python folder here. And then let me call it port scan GUI, and let's run it. Alright, there's nothing yet, but it is coming up. It's the right colors. Now let's start populating and adding the labels and all the stuff we want. Alright, so we'll leave the code to start the GUI for last. Let's start getting the labels there. Alright, so the first label we're gonna add will be the title. So we started off like that. We set a variable name and we do a label. We specify the GUI, which is the graphical interface component we created. The text we want for it is port scanner. And the font, we'll just do something simple here. We'll do font Helvetica, and the size we could do like a 16, and let's throw an underline in there so it's a clear title. And then we have to place it on screen, so we do dot place, and we have to specify the position. We can do X like 16 and Y equals to 10. And then if we save that and run, so there we go, there's our title right there. Alright, so let's keep adding the labels. So now let's do the target label. So text equals target, then we gotta place that. So I like to keep a consistency, so X will pretty much remain the 16 for all the initial labels that are starting on the left side of the screen. So we'll try to keep that in mind. Now let's add the entry label. So that's basically where you're gonna type in the target. So entry, put the GUI. We're always gonna have the GUI there to specify the component we're placing the label in. And we can have an initial text there. We'll do localhost, which is basically scanning your own computer. Alright, like that. And then we gotta place it. So this is gonna be further ahead, and the Y will keep at 90. And now we're gonna insert the text here, just in case. Yep, there we go. Alright, so now let's get the port range labels in there. So ports. Now let's place it on screen as well. X will be 16. Y we could do like 158 should be good. Alright, now we need the entry for that. We're gonna need two entries, one to specify the port's beginning and another one to specify the end of ports. So we'll start at port 1. Let's place it on screen. And we do have to specify the width as well. That seems a little small. Let's do like 90. And I'll go ahead and insert the text once again, just for good measure. Alright, now we need another one. So this is the end of the ports. We'll keep a standard 1024. Now where do we place this? Let's do another, add some padding for the horizontal positioning. The Y positioning could be the same, and the width should be the same as well. And we'll add the text. Cool. Alright, now let's add a few more texts that are going to provide information to when we run the scan. So these are going to be some labels. So this label is going to be the results text. Oh, let's do dot place. X will be 16. Alright. We'll just keep some standard text in there for now, like that. Let's place that on screen. So we'll be changing that text according to the scan information. Alright, so we got a bunch of stuff in there. Let's save this and let's see how it's looking so far. There we go, pretty cool. So we can already click on stuff. We can change the values. Of course, that's not going to do anything at the moment. And I do want to point out that some of these X and Y values are going to vary from device to device or from a mobile device to a computer. So you might have to adjust accordingly. Of course, it's not the purpose of this guide to teach you how to do that specifically, but if you're interested in it, we can definitely make another video to talk about that in the future. Alright, so now we need a nice big list to show the open ports. So let's add that. For that we're gonna need a frame. So let's start off a frame. We'll specify the GUI, of course, and then let's place it on screen. X will start off at 16 as well. Y will do 275, and then width we could do 370, and height let's do like 215. This is where it gets tricky in my experience, the list and the frames. A lot of the pixel sizes vary from like a mobile device to another one, so you might have to play around with that. So the width for the list box gonna be 59. We could do the height like 6. And let's place the list box on screen. So because we're already inside of the frame, we can do X0 and Y0 as well. You have to think in relative to the frame placement here. So they're both starting at 0 because of that. and then we can do a list box bind. So this is an event that takes place whenever the list box is selected or triggered. I'm not sure we'll even use this, but just so you know, you would do it like that, and then you could put a function here, and that function would execute whenever you click on it. We might use it, we might not. Let's see, there might be a second part to this if enough people are interested on it. And we also have to add a scroll bar, which is going to allow us to scroll through the list box and see the open ports and stuff like that. So add that to the frame. Is it to the frame? Am I doing this right? I hope so. Alright, so let's pack it, and we're gonna choose the side. It's gonna be the right side, of course. I mean, I think it makes more sense. And we'll fill the Y, which is the vertical positioning. So now let's configure the list box. So we do the Y scroll command equals scroll bar dot set. And then we need to configure the scroll bar to adjust accordingly. So command equals list box dot y view. There we go. So that should have our list on screen. Yeah, that looks okay. Yeah, we'll keep it like that. Alright. Now we just have to add some buttons. So we're gonna need 2 buttons. So let's do B11 equals button. Add it to the GUI. The text is gonna be start scan. Alright, where were we? Okay, so oh yeah, we gotta do the function here. So the function's gonna be start scan. So that's the function we want executed once the button is clicked. Now we gotta place the button on screen. So let's do x equals 16, y equals 500. For the width, we'll do 170. And we need another button to save the scans. So let's do save results. And the command for that will be save scan. And then we gotta place that on screen. So the x will be 210, y will be 500, and the width will be the same as previously. And there we go. I think that's everything we need. Let's take a look. But if we try to run, it's not gonna work. It's gonna give an error because we don't have the functions set up yet. So let's do scan functions, and we'll do the start scan and the save functions. So let's do start scan, and we could just do starting scan just temporarily so we can test it out and see if everything looks how we want. And save scan, we can do saving scan. Alright, so let's save that. Let's see how it looks. Looks pretty reasonable. I could do this. Alright, and now basically we just have to transfer over the scripts that actually do the functionality of the interface. So pretty much the scripts that will be scanning the ports. So let's go back and let's get that going. Alright, so before getting to the scripts, we're gonna need a few variables here. So let's put the variables we need. so the scanning variables. So we're gonna need a variable to start the scan, so this is gonna be the port where the scan will begin. So let's do 1, and then we need one for the finish, and let's do 1024 since those are the default values we put in the interface. And then we're gonna need an array for the log. This is what's gonna be saved to a text file. Then let's also do a array for the port, so every port that's open we're gonna write down in this array. And then of course the target, so localhost, since that's our initial target. Yeah, and that's it. Now we can work on the functions. So let's start with the start scan function. So we're gonna start it off with a try clause, and that's because if this function will be running inside of a thread, so if it crashes we just want to accept and not throw an error, since it's gonna crash most likely because either it timed out or the port's not open or something like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and program the script, even though we're basically copying the same thing from the previous video that I showed at the beginning. So we're gonna start a socket object. All of this is quite standard stuff in my videos at least. So if you have no clue what's going on here, you can check out one of the other videos, specifically the one I showed at the beginning of this video, which explains what's going on here more in depth. We will put a timeout of 4 seconds so that if the port's not open within 4 seconds, it's most likely closed, and we can assume that and go ahead and shut the scan down so that we're not. You gotta remember, we're gonna be running like maybe 1,000 threads, maybe 10,000 threads at once. So on a mobile device, that could get a little sketchy because they're not necessarily made to be running thousands of threads. Anyway, we're gonna start a C variable here that's gonna attempt a connection, and that's gonna be to the target and port specified. So, oh yeah, this will be a argument passed to this. Since this will be running in a thread, we're gonna have to pass the specific target and individual port. So think of this function as running basically a scan on a single port, and then we'll have another function that's simply gonna iterate through all the desired ports and give us the output. Alright, so if C equals 0, that is if the port is open, let's do a little text here. So port, let's put the argument here, and then we'll do a tab. So port open. So that's what we'll be seeing on the list. And we'll put the port variable here. Alright, cool. And we can append this to the log as well. So this text will be appended to the log. That's what we're saving and displaying to the user afterwards. And we can append this. Basically, we're adding it to these arrays. We're gonna append the ports to the ports array as well. And we can insert this in the list box. So the command to do that is insert, and notice that we're accessing the list box object from inside the function, and that's no issue since it's in the same script. And we'll append it to the end of it, and just make sure we convert that text to a string, and that's it. So after that's done, we could do a close to make sure we close the connection. And here we're gonna catch a few possible errors. So we're gonna do a exception on OS error, and this will be if there's too many threads opening. Usually they throw this error out. So too many, also for the sockets. So let's do too many open sockets, and then we can display which port that was. So hopefully you won't be seeing this, but if you do, at least we're gonna have some information on it. And for any other exception, we're just gonna go ahead and close all of the connections we opened, And yeah, let's close the socket object, and we can do a system.exit. And this is not going to exit the actual program because we're running this inside of a daemon thread, which basically executes in the background. So whatever happens, we want to do another exit at the end of it. If we connect it to the port and it's open, if it's not, whatever the case may be. Alright. Now that I'm thinking, I realize we're gonna need another function to update the results on the label we created on the GUI. So let's define that as well. We'll call it update result. This is just gonna show us how many ports out of X ports are open. So we could do result text, and let's do like this. So we'll make it a string, and we'll do the length of the ports array. So pretty much that's the amount of ports that are open, because we're adding all the open ports to the ports array up here. All we have to do is put the length of that array, and that's going to return the amount of open ports that we have. Alright, and then we do that. Let's do a dash here to separate, and we do the IP finish, which is the variable we defined just a minute ago that's going to represent the total amount of ports we have open. And then we can add this bracket here to close it up, and it would be nice if we displayed the IP as well. So let's do string target, and that's gonna display the IP address of the target. And alright, that's gonna be the text we want updating, and the label that we want to update is label, this one right here, label 27. So we just go over here, we do l27.configure, and you do text equals rtext. Yep, yeah, that looks right. And we want to do that right in here, which is where we have the open port. So every time we find a new port, we want to update the result, just like that. Alright, so that's pretty cool. I think that's it, but we still need a function to scan all of the ports. So we need a function that's gonna go through a loop and scan every port that we want. So let's call that one start scan. Wait, is that the same name we have here? It is the same name. No. So let's change this to scan port. That makes more sense. So this is gonna scan a specific port, and then we have the start scan, which will actually determine which ports we have to scan through and stuff like that. So right off the bat, let's do a global to allow us to use and change the outer variables. So let's do ports, log, target, and the IP. It would be nice if we had a function that would clear the list box, so that every time we start a scan, everything is clear. So we can actually go ahead and create that here. Let's do a clear scan, and we'll do list box dot delete from element 0 to end, and that should clear. So before we start each scan, we can do a clear scan, and that's gonna clean the list box for us. Alright, and then we have to refresh some of the arrays. So ports is gonna be cleared up, and now we gotta get ports ranges from GUI. So we're gonna do IPS equals int, because we need it to be an integer, and we need to find the specific element. So this is the one, this entry here. So element L24 and L25. Let's go ahead and get those values. So here we do L24 dot get, and that's gonna get the value from that text box. And then we do IP f equals integer L25 dot get. Cool. Alright, so at this point I think it would be smart to start writing the log file. So we could do log.append, which basically adds an element. Let's put a little title, so let's do port scanner, and then we'll do another entry here. I like to have a little this thing here, the equal sign underneath, to make it look like a title. So we'll multiply that by 14, then we can add a new line to it. Oops, dash new, and then we do log.append, and let's display the target. So here we could do the dash tab, and that's gonna be the equivalent of a tab. And then we do string target. Perfect. Alright, cool. At this point we're gonna start a try clause here, so that if we have any errors it won't crash the application. Alright, so first off, let's get the target. So for certain addresses like a website or something, we would have to do a get host by name, and that basically is like a check if the host is online. And we need to get the label L22, which is the target. So let's write here string L22 dot get, and once we do that, let's go ahead and append the IP address to the program as well, because in some cases that's going to be different than the actual target. So if you do a website, it's also going to show you the IP address for that website. And then let's add the ports, the ranges that we want to scan. So we do ports, put the tab. The tab is so that everything looks nice and neat later on. Then we have to add IPS, a little bit more text here, dash. Then we do string IP finish, then another little bit of text here, just like that. And let's append a new line as well. Alright, cool. Now we get to start scanning. Let's go. So how is this gonna work? Let's do a while loop. So while the IP start is less or equal than the IP finish, we're gonna run this. Inside we'll have another try clause. So let's do a variable called scan, and this is where we get the threads out. So let's do threading. So let's start a threading object, and the target is going to be the scan port function, which is the function we created above, and the arguments, oops, I think it's like that, will be the target and the IPS, which is basically the IP function. I think I have an extra, there we go, that looks right. And then we have to scan, we're gonna set daemon equals true, and that's so it runs in the background. And we'll do a scan dot start, so that's gonna start out the thread. So if we run into any exceptions, let's do a time.sleep of 0.01 milliseconds, and then we have to add 1 to the IP. Okay, so that's basically it. And if we do have any exception for the previous try clause over here, I don't know if I'm in the correct indentation here. I think I need to go back one more here. Yeah, that looks right. Then we're just gonna assume either the target is down or there's some error. So we'll display a message saying target and then string, I think it was L22.get. So we'll do target not found. So that's what we'll display. And we can append this to the log as well. And let's insert that at the 0 position. Alright. So basically this is going to do the scan for us. It's gonna go through all the ports that we defined. It's gonna write the log down for us. Now the last function that we need is a function to write the log to a file. So let's define save scan. This function should be pretty easy. Let's get some global variables, the log, target, ports, and the IP finish. And remember we set a blank line over here. We actually want to replace this line with the information of how many ports were open out of X or whatever that X could be. So we're gonna set the log 5. So that's gonna say result. Oh yeah, let's put the tab so it shows up nicely. And then it's gonna say string length of ports. Then we put the forward dash in there. Then we do the IP finish. And I think that's it. And we can add a new line to it as well. And now to write the file with the scan, all we have to do is with open. And this is where we need to come up with a name for it. Let's do port scan hyphen. Then we could do string target, so that we have the target name in there. Dot text, so it's a text file. So we do mode equals write encoding equals UTF-8, and we could do as my file. So for each line we're going to do my file dot write, and we'll do a new line and dot join, and we're gonna pull the information from log. So yeah, that's it. I think this should be the whole program. So let's save it and let's run it. It's coming up so far. Let's go ahead and scan my router. And let's do 10,000 ports just to be safe. Alright, let's start the scan. See if it works. And there we go. You can see it updated the results there. It shows 8 ports out of 10,000 are open. It gives you the IP address, and we can go ahead and scroll down and see which ports are open. Then if we hit save result, and if I go back over here and let's open this file, I don't know why it shows so small over there, but let me see, change encoding. There we go, that's better. So you can see it shows the target as localhost. Underneath it shows the actual IP address. And you can also see why I put the tabs in there. It shows everything on the same line, so it's easier to see. And then above it shows the port, so the range we're scanning is 1 to 10,240. Results are 8 ports are open out of 10,024, and then it gives you the text of all the ports that are open, and from there on you can go ahead and investigate, check those ports out. I thought it would be a cool little program to make since it teaches you about sockets. It's also a nice little program to have in your pocket to be able to scan a client that's connected on a wireless network perhaps. And just to show you guys, I'm gonna go back to the app here, and let's say we wanna, let's go ahead and do like a website. So if we do my website, and let's go ahead and start the scan on that. There we go. We'll give it a second. Yeah, there we have it. There's the scan. You can see we have 5 ports open, and there's the IP address. You can see it fetches the actual IP address for you. And if we go ahead and save the result, I'm gonna go see if I can locate it here. Oh, there we go. So I actually have 2 functions here with the save scan, so apparently it was causing some issues. Let me get rid of that. Oopsies. Let's save that again, and let's run this one more time. Alright, let's start the scan here. Alright, there we go. Now let's save the result. Should be done. Let's pull the files here, my Python folder, and there we have it, port scan with the IP address. And if we go to the encoding so you guys can see, there we go, it saves the actual IP address, it shows you the open ports, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other suggestions, if you made it this far, you got a cool idea for a script you want to convert to a graphical interface, let me know in the comments, or put a link with your project, I want to see it, and any other ideas, I'm open for it. See you guys the next time.